Could we see a 2D Metroid game this year instead of Metroid Prime 4? I know that might sound a little crazy, but let's talk about it. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Botox Games, and today I wanted to have a little bit of a free-form discussion about the future of Metroid and the potential of a new or even remade 2D Metroid game releasing this year instead of Metroid Prime 4. Now, I do want to say before we get into this and really talk about it, I do think that the likeliest scenario is that Metroid Prime 4 is ready and it is releasing on the Nintendo Switch this holiday season. I've made several videos about that. I'm not changing that. However, I have also talked about the idea of the potential for a 2D Metroid game releasing this year instead, going back to, I think, January is when I first mentioned that in one of my predictions videos for the year. I said that, given how long it's been since Metroid Dread, given how long that game took in development, it was about 4 years, it's been 3 years, or it will have been 3 years come this fall, I think it's not that unreasonable to think that Mercury Steam might be ready with another 2D Metroid game. So I guess the major question here we have to figure out is Metroid Prime 4 actually going to be a Switch 1 game, or a game that is marketed and exclusive for the Switch 1? Because if that is the case, it is certainly coming out this year. Let me know in the comments down below, do you think Prime 4 is actually coming out this year? I've been predicting it for several years, so when it inevitably happens, I can't say, oh, I was right, because I've been saying Metroid Prime 4 will come out for the past probably 3 or 4 years now, and that just has not happened. So at this point, I don't know what to believe. I don't really know if I want to believe that Prime 4 is actually coming out this year. I have been pretty adamant that I don't think it would be cross-gen in the past, and I'll be honest, I'm starting to open up a little bit. I think it is possible that Nintendo will market that game as a cross-gen title, or at least as a big major Switch 2 title, though no matter what, I do think it'll release on the Switch 1 as they have promised it to Switch 1 owners for so long. I think it'd be kind of foolish not to release it there, especially when you consider how big the Switch's install base is. And the thing with Mercury Steam and their development timeline here, considering it's been 3 years since Metroid Dread released, or like I said, it will be 3 years come October, they are likely ready to release something soon. And I don't know how pressing it is for Nintendo to get out another 2D Metroid game on the Switch 2. Like, is that a year 1 title? Is that a year 2 title even? Is that something that Nintendo views as a game in their lineup for the Switch 2 that will actually move units? Because although I do prefer 2D Metroid to Metroid Prime vastly, it's not even close in my opinion, I will say that a Metroid Prime game is certainly a more optically impressive game, and a game that will likely sell more units than Metroid Dread being the best-selling Metroid game. It will likely do better. It is a game that can really show off the Switch 2's power, and would honestly be a system seller, at least for hardcore gamers, maybe not for casuals. Whereas another 2D Metroid game early on in the Switch 2's life cycle, I'm not really sure how much sense that makes. So is it possible that since we already had Metroid Dread, 3 years ago, the game sold pretty well by Metroid standards, could we see another one release on the Switch this year? The more I think about it, the more I'm thinking, yeah, that actually does make sense. Now, would this be a new game or another remake or something? That is the big question. So, Samus Returns finished development in 2017. It was finished even before they announced it, actually, so that was a pretty early example of Nintendo just sitting on a finished game. And from there, it took about 4 years for them to finish up and polish up Metroid Dread. But that was also Mercury Steam's first brand new Metroid project in conjunction with EPD7, so I feel like, hypothetically right, assuming all goes according to plan, I don't think it's that unreasonable to think that maybe they do have a new Metroid game, Metroid 6, ready for the Switch this year. I mean, 3 years is a decent amount of time, and since they already had that engine ready, they already kind of mastered making a Metroid game look really good in HD, I think 3 years is probably about right. Now, I do think it would be likelier that we would get a remake or a port. My gut says, oh, Samus Returns makes a lot of sense. Mercury Steam already made that game. Could it be that they're just polishing it up in the Metroid Dread engine, making it look super nice, super pretty for the Nintendo Switch, making it all HD and all that? Could that be a game that releases this year? We've seen Nintendo going back to the 3DS well quite a bit with stuff like Luigi's Mansion and Miitopia, so I think it's possible that Samus Returns could be one of those games that gets ported over to the Nintendo Switch, and I think that would do pretty well if it released this holiday season. Certainly less exciting than a new game, certainly less exciting than Metroid Prime 4, but even back in 2017, I mean, that was like the controversy. Everybody was so angry that Nintendo would dare release this beautiful 2D Metroid game on the 3DS when the Switch was already out. So it would be kind of a full circle moment to see that game ported to the Nintendo Switch. Even funnier if it releases before Metroid Prime 4, because it was announced after Metroid Prime 4. But yeah, I think Samus Returns HD actually does make a lot of sense. Though I do wonder if that would be something Nintendo would try to save for a little bit later, maybe in the Switch 2's life cycle, maybe even a couple years from now on the current Switch, depending on how long this cross-gen period is. We're hearing, I believe it was from the Brazil leaker, who originally said that the Switch was pushed to 2025, the Switch 2. We're hearing from him, I believe, that he's heard that they're remastering at least one GameCube game and one 3DS game for 2025. Maybe it could be that. Maybe we get a Metroid game early next year. I didn't make a video on that rumor because I frankly think that is one of the most nothing rumors of all time. Nintendo's always remastering games and remaking games, and specifically GameCube and 3DS have been something they're really focused on recently. So, yeah, throw the dart at the board. You're probably going to be right in that regard. So yeah, I think Samus Returns makes a lot of sense. But could it be something else? I mean, the obvious two are Metroid Fusion and Super Metroid. I haven't really seen anybody talking about Zero Mission coming back anytime soon. Although, actually, is that on Switch Online? That is actually interesting now that I think about it. I don't think Zero Mission has come to Switch Online. And typically, when a game doesn't come to Switch Online for an extended period of time, maybe there's something going on. I mean, maybe not, though, because we saw Mario Land took, like, freaking years to come out on Switch Online. But like Mario versus Donkey Kong didn't come to Switch Online, it got a remake. Mario RPG never came, it got a remake. So maybe there's something to the idea that Zero Mission could end up getting a polishing and a new kind of 2D 3D version for the Nintendo Switch. That would be very exciting. I love Zero Mission, but I also love Metroid Fusion and Super Metroid. If we're going in order, Super Metroid would be next because we've gotten Metroid 1 and 2, and Super Metroid would be the third one. And while I'll be honest, I do prefer Metroid Fusion to Super Metroid. I don't know if Super Metroid is a game they really want to mess with. That is kind of seen as like a perfect game by a lot of people, whereas Metroid Fusion widely isn't considered a perfect game by a lot of people, at least from what I've seen in my circles. I think from that perspective, Metroid Fusion might make a little bit more sense, but also Super Metroid is probably the most popular 2D Metroid game, so maybe they would remake that instead just because of that. I definitely think it's possible, and even if it doesn't happen this year, if we do get Metroid Prime 4 this October, we'll say, I think we will get something for Mercury Steam next year for sure, even if that is a Switch 1 game after the Switch 2 comes out, even if it is just a port or a remaster of Samus Returns, or even a full remake of Fusion or Super, or even Zero Mission. I'm kind of thinking about that whole NSO thing. That is very interesting to me now that I've realized that. I do think we'll have another 2D Metroid game before too long. I know it's funny for Metroid fans to talk about how rough it had been for so long, but the reality is, ever since 2017, we've low-key been, like, pretty well off, right? Federation Force in 2016, love it or hate it, it was a Metroid game, but then from there we had Samus Returns in 2017 alongside the announcement of Metroid Prime 4, and then there was a couple years off there, but in 2021 we had Metroid Dread, which was a fantastic game. Metroid Prime Remastered came out last year in 2023, and then yeah, I think within the next 12 months or so, we will certainly be seeing something else, be that Prime 4, be that this 2D game. It's an exciting time to be a Metroid fan. I think right now, even though it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel for Metroid Prime 4 specifically, because it has been so freaking long. I mean, we're coming up on 7 years now, this June, that Prime 4 was announced. I do think we're about to hit a breakthrough point for Metroid where not only does it propel itself at least a little bit forward in popularity, I don't know if it's going to be this Breath of the Wild moment that a lot of people want for Metroid Prime 4, but I do think it'll certainly get a little bit more popular than it has been. And that's just very exciting to me. As a big fan of Metroid, specifically 2D Metroid, though, yeah, I'm very excited for the future of this franchise. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think we could see a 2D Metroid game this year instead of Metroid Prime 4? It really just comes down to development timelines. I think Mercury Steam should be ready to show something within the next year or so. And like I said, I'm not really sure if that's something they would want to prop up as like a big Switch 2 game. But once again, it could be just another port or remaster after the Switch 2 is out on the Switch 1, because they will continue supporting the Switch 1 with software. A little cross-gen action, if you will. So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Of course, subscribe here for more Nintendo Switch news, reviews, discussions, coverage, all of that fun stuff. Follow me on Twitter at BoTalksGames. And until next time, folks, peace.